Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Sally Nugent.
The headlines for you at 6 o'clock this morning. Ready to roll out. GP surgeries in England and care homes in Scotland will start giving doses of the COVID vaccine today.
Going the extra mile, both sides agree to keep talking in an attempt to break the deadlock over a Brexit trade deal.
But talk is not enough for businesses. I'll be talking to exporters, importers, those who move goods around Europe and asking what is at stake with 2.5 weeks to go.
The master of the spinal, John le Carre, author of Tinker Tailor, Soldier Spy, amongst many others, has died aged 89.
Good morning. Arsenal's misery continues. They've suffered their worst ever start to a Premier League season after losing at home to Burnley. 2,000 fans in the ground, but some could barely watch.
Ready, Freddie, go! We catch up with the 9-year-old running every day to raise funds for the hospital treating his best friend.
Welcome to the London Coliseum, the largest West End theatre in London, and we're going to be joined live all morning by the chorus from the English National Opera to bring some Christmas cheer. We need it because outside the weather is rather wet. We're going to have showers or longer spells of rain, and it's going to be quite windy today as well. But I'll have all the details in 10 minutes.
Good morning, it's Monday, it's the 14th of December. Top story for you this morning, around 100 GP practices in England are to receive their first batches of the coronavirus vaccine today.
Some will start giving the vaccinations to patients from today, with those aged over 80 given priority. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh has this report.
Dr. Amara Hughes is getting her surgery ready for the next phase of the NHS vaccination campaign. In the heart of London, Bloomsbury Surgery will aim to vaccinate between 800 to 1,000 over 80s in the next 3.5 days. That will mean injecting up to 40 patients every hour. Like others receiving the doses, the practice will be open between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Those eligible for a jab will be contacted by the surgery.
Do sit tight. We will be phoning you, so it is by appointment and we will get to everybody, so don't start ringing your practices because we will be ringing you to ensure that if you're eligible that you are invited for your vaccine.
The rollout to GP surgeries comes less than a week after Margaret Keenan made history when the UK became the first country in the world to begin vaccinations in hospitals. The jabs are now being administered in the community. An immunisation campaign of this magnitude has never been undertaken by the NHS.
It has been a real rollercoaster. Many of my colleagues have been working, all hours through the COVID pandemic, and now to finally be in a position to offer a vaccination to our community is incredibly powerful. And as a GP, I'm really quite blown away.
Around 100 practices in England will receive their doses. A further 100 to 200 are expected to receive them by the end of the week. Palab Ghosh, BBC News.
Let's speak to Gita Pense, who is outside a GP practice in the West Midlands that will begin vaccinating later on today. Good morning to you, Gita. Lovely to have you on the programme as ever. So, let us know, is it an exciting day?
Yes, excitement, and I understand from staff here, a real sense of pride, as you can imagine, to be one of the first GP surgeries in the country to be able to offer this vaccination to the most vulnerable of patients in this area here in Hales Owen and the surrounding area. And as we heard in that film today, 100 GP surgeries in locations across England will receive the batch of this vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, which some of them will open clinics this afternoon, which is what's happening here. That's why they'll be amongst the first patients. But also, for most of the GP surgeries, it will start from tomorrow. And it will be the most vulnerable people first. As we saw last week, the beginning of that mass vaccination programme beginning in those designated hospital hubs across the country. Well, this is really about bringing it into the heart of the community. And so at this surgery, they say they are contacting those who are 80 and over, not just at this surgery, but in other surgeries around this area. So really it is about collaboration. Also local NHS staff, such as nurses and pharmacists, will be working alongside GPs to roll out the vaccine. But a real milestone moment, and as we heard in that film, this is the greatest vaccination programme ever to be undertaken by the NHS. But I think there will be lots of smiles here today.
OK, Geeta, thank you very much. We're back with you later, and we're going to be talking to one of the GPs there over the course of the programme.
Well, vaccinations will also begin in care homes in Scotland today. Staff and older residents will be the first to receive the jab. There had been fears that the rollout wouldn't go ahead because of difficulties in storing the vaccine. The Scottish Government says it is a step on the road to recovery from the pandemic.
Schools in the London Borough of Greenwich have been asked to close from this evening because of a rise of coronavirus cases there in the capital. The council's Labour leader wrote to all head teachers and parents in the area suggesting that teaching moves online. The National Education Union said the decision was very sensible.
Talks will continue today between the UK and the EU after both sides agreed to go the extra mile to secure a post-Brexit deal.
The EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, will brief ambassadors of the 27 member states in Brussels this morning.
Well, our correspondent Nick Beak is there for us. Morning to you, Nick. Now, normally at this point, are we starting to hear little rumours and things sneaking out from the talks? But so far, this seems to be quite quiet, doesn't it?
Morning, Sally. Morning, Dan. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The sort of tap of information that's coming from inside the negotiating room has really been turned down to a trickle. So anyone this morning who's telling you they really know what's going on, I'd suggest they may be telling porky pies, because it's really difficult to know what exactly is happening. We know clearly that fish is still an issue, but also it's the idea of competition rules, the so-called level playing field. Think of it like a football field. You don't want it to be slanted in one direction or the other so that one side has an unfair advantage. And I think the talks are really coming down to this, the extent to which in the future one side may try and undercut the other. So that's what they're going to try and sort out over the coming days. Interestingly, they haven't set a new deadline. Now, is that a recognition that this sort of stuff is hard enough anyway without a short-term deadline being imposed on things? We know the deadline that really counts is the end of the year, the 31st of December, when the UK leaves the transition period. As you say, the EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, will be updating EU ambassadors today. Normally, he gives a pretty bleak assessment of what's been going on. It'll be interesting to see if he thinks, after this phone call yesterday between Boris Johnson and the European Commission President, that there is a bit more renewed hope. I don't want to exaggerate here. I mean, the feeling is pretty gloomy still. They think a no deal is still, very likely, but maybe that they keep on talking is a good sign, and that this deal could be snatched at the last minute.
Nick, thanks very much indeed. That's Nick Beak in Brussels.
Now, one of Britain's best-known spy novelists, John le Carre, has died at the age of 89 after a short illness.
Described as an undisputed giant of English literature, his most famous works include Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, The Night Manager and The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Our reporter Keith Doyle takes a look back at his life and career now.
And he must have a man on the inside, mustn't he?
Alec Guinness in the television version of Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, playing George Smiley. The Spy Master was John le Carre's most enduring and celebrated creation. Like Smiley, le Carre had been a spy. David Cornwell, his real name, had been fascinated by lies and duplicity since childhood. He was first recruited for intelligence work at university in Switzerland. Then at Oxford, he spied on left-wing contemporaries.
When the option was presented to me, it was immensely attractive. It really was as if the whole of my life had prepared me for this moment.
The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, later filmed with Richard Burton, was le Carre's breakthrough novel, written while he was working for MI6 at the British Embassy in Bonn when the Berlin Wall went up. The author, Stephen King, tweeted, "John le Carre has passed at the age of 89. This terrible year has claimed a literary giant and a humanitarian spirit." His agent of 15 years, Johnny Geller, wrote, "John le Carre was an undisputed giant of English literature. I've lost a mentor, an inspiration, but most importantly a friend. We will not see his like again." His work did define the Cold War era, but his first post-Cold War novel,
The Night Manager,
was another bestseller and a hit TV adaptation 20 years later, in which the author played a rare cameo. But it was his spy novels he'll be most remembered for. He believed authors and spies had much in common, both hiding their real selves in characters of their own creation. Keith Doyle, BBC News.
What an incredible career.
Amazing, amazing. And of course, we will be paying tribute to John le Carre throughout this programme. And at 8:30 this morning, we will hear from the novelists Robert Harris and Ian Rankin. They both have tales to tell.
Yes, two big, literary big hitters themselves. Now, if you're a keen stargazer, you'll know that last night was a good chance to see the Geminid meteor shower. But in some places, as per usual, there was a better view than others.
Have a look at these. These pictures were taken in a mountainous area of southwest China.
Wow.
High altitude, clear skies helped to set up that incredible display. The Geminids are huge chunks of ice and rock from an asteroid. The Earth passes through the debris every December.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.